much. Okay, this is the first time I've spoken to a microphone before, so here we go. So yeah, the topic today is going to be manual workflows to AI-driven insights. There we go. Okay, I did prepare an agenda, although I've noticed that nobody else had an agenda, so I feel really weird about this. So we'll do introductions, we'll talk about Spectrum brands, we'll go over some of the automating workflows, and some of their favorite apps, and then we'll also do a Q&A session if there's time. So yeah, let's just kick things off. Introductions, my name is Dan Shearer. I'm a strategic CSM here at AppZen. I've been here for 6 years. I love this company, and I hope you guys do too.
Hi, Nicole Wolff. I'm with Spectrum Brands. I'm the accounting supervisor for T&E. And so we've just had AppZen now for 1 year.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm David Weiss. I've been with Spectrum Brands for about a year, 3 years now, but I've been in the T&E role for about a year, just kind of following Nicole's supervision.
Okay, cool. Introductions. All right, so yeah, we'll talk about Spectrum Brands now. Spectrum Brands is a global pet care, home and garden, home and personal care company. They're a manufacturing company, and they have over 1 billion consumers. They're headquartered in Middleton, Wisconsin, as you can see in that nice picture right there. Some of their bigger brands are Black & Decker, George Foreman, Cutter, Repel, some things that you guys may have used to avoid mosquitoes, which, I mean, come on. All right. So yeah, to kick things off, I just really wanted to ask Spectrum Brands these simple questions. So what were you guys doing before AppZen? How did you guys audit expense reports prior to AppZen?
So when I started at Spectrum Brands, so we use Concur. They really didn't have anything that they were using for audit. So how they worked the workflow is the expense report was turned in, went to the manager, and then if there was any exceptions that were flagging, it was coming to our group to look at them. We ended up running some report finding that managers were only looking at about 6% of the actual receipts. So it was kind of just more of a, get it and click it type of thing. So we started looking at audit programs, and we had found that Spectrum Brands had actually had a contract with a different company for audit, never used it. So we gave that one a shot first, and it ended up taking 2 to 3 weeks for them to approve an expense report before it would even come to us. So obviously that's not acceptable. And I was in a Concur user group, and some of the people were AppZen users and brought that up. So then we contacted AppZen, and it's changed the way we do audit completely now.
That is so awesome. I think that you covered the second point as well. What were some key factors? But if you want to touch on that.
Yeah. Well, and the reason that we wanted to go with AppZen too is just for one, the ease of use of it and how easy it was to hook up to Concur. But a lot of things we were missing were, duplicates, things that we just couldn't find on our own. So, and it processes, within 3 hours, we get expense reports approved instead of 3 weeks.
That's awesome. And then, you guys decided to roll out orgs gradually. What prompted that decision? And
Well, we wanted to start off in just our main groups in North America and Canada before we moved globally to our APAC and EMEA. We mostly just fine-tune the process and our policy. And we're currently in the process of converting our purchase card system into Concur, and which is going to be audited through AppZen. So we kind of just wanted to make sure everything was ready for that when we rolled out with that process.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. So from here, let's talk about automating manual workflows. So this is a chart here that essentially explains the automation that Spectrum Brands is achieving. When we say manually approved reports, it means an auditor physically touched it. It stopped in AppZen, an auditor went in, reviewed the high risk, and then essentially either approved it or rejected it. When we talk about auto-approved, that means no auditor touched the expense report whatsoever, which is obviously one of the greatest aspects of AppZen is just the automation. So then you don't have to look at 65% of your expense reports, for instance. And you'll probably also notice on the graph there that it's going from gray to blue. There's a giant jump there. And the giant jump is actually associated with Spectrum Brands CSM, meeting with them, which was Shannon. She met with them in November of last year. And then after she met with them, there was a huge spike in automation it jumped 21% after that meeting, which is absolutely fantastic. So you may be wondering what the heck she did. So you may have seen this previously. CSMs will go into our dashboards, like the audit model performance dashboard, and then they'll evaluate the models themselves and try and find places where you could automate more based on the rejections and the approvals, because like what we've been talking about this whole time, a lot of expenses that flag will end up getting rubber stamped and just get approved overall. So all of this leads to Spectrum Brands saving around 559 hours utilizing AppZen as an expense audit tool. And you may be wondering what the heck they're going to do with that time. Which is, so what they're going to do is probably one of the most dangerous activities that you can do, which is base jumping and wingsuit flying, which I don't know how you practice those types of things, but people are out there doing this, which, now that they have so much time, they could definitely go do that. So, all right. And then, so I really wanted to talk to you guys about what's your favorite apps within AppZen. So yeah, why don't you, what's one of your favorite apps in AppZen?
Mine is probably the duplicate.
Yeah.
And this will really come in handy with our purchase card too when we get that over. But with Concur, if you're a Concur user, you get the pending card transactions or cash expenses that were really put on the company credit card. And a lot of times our travelers just don't pay attention to that. So they'll accept, maybe turn in the company card on one report, and then they'll have that pending card transaction or receipt that they'll turn in on another report. And that's something, we just can't, find those between reports. So this picks up all those duplicates. And what's nice about the program is it shows both receipts or the duplicates in there, and you can click on it and it opens up that other report automatically so you can see.
Yeah. And, with this specific model, it is impossible for humans to do because it's comparing images across time and also the expense details as well. So it's a pretty complicated model overall. And I have a question for David. What movies did you watch in March of 2024? Do you remember?
No.
No? Oh, man. I was really hoping you would. So, with this, it's like, if you can't remember a 2-hour-long movie, which is just multiple different images, how are you supposed to remember it, a receipt from March of 2024? Or even further back than that? So this type of model saves you guys time and also does something that there's no way that you would be able to do on your own. So yeah. And then what's another of your guys' favorite models? Oh, this is cash line validation. This is the one that's like, okay, yeah.
Like, oh.
Okay.
Oh, no, this one.
No worries. Cash line validation essentially takes you guys' your corporate cards, the last 4 digits of your corporate cards, and we're going to read the receipt and identify when a user asks for an out-of-pocket expense when they've used a corporate card. So that's what cash line validation does. And we actually find that a lot of customers don't have this model activated. So we definitely encourage you guys to work with your CSMs to activate this type of model. So yeah, it's also referred to as like the double dip model because of the functionality that it does. So yeah, and then I guess we still have plenty of time. So what are some other apps that you guys find amazing overall?
Oh, no, this is probably my favorite. So every company has problem children. People that just don't submit their stuff over. We have a 30-day submission policy, and generally this picks up on that kind of stuff because these kind of people don't submit things for 2, 3, even 4 months out. So it's a really great tool for us to not only look at the personal submissions, but their credit card submissions, and kind of seeing of I don't know what they're trying to get away with pretty much, because half the time they're either trying to submit things that should not be submitted out of policy, and rather than just trying to like pick through every single report, this gives us like a broad spectrum of what we can look at.
Yeah, and being able to track all of our problem people is really nice because with all the employees we have, one is constantly causing problems. If they submit everything right, it could go through AppZen automatically, but we've got it here where it stops everything from these people.
Yep, that makes sense. So yeah, this is the monitored employee audit model. To their point, you can add employees whenever you want and remove them. say you find somebody that's like, suddenly having a weird month where they're just like expensing things they shouldn't. You can throw them on that list, and then it'll flag them at the header level rather than every single line. So it'll just stop their expense report for review. Like they said, maybe there's problematic people that you just want to ensure that you're reviewing their expenses. So yeah. And then the last model that I wanted to talk to you guys about, ask you guys about, is the personal expense detection. So you guys want to talk about this one, or you want me to cover it?
No, where we found that this was really a problem, we'd have employees leave, and then we'd go settle up their credit card and find out that they had personal expenses they were never paying. So we'd have, just recently, a couple $1,000s, somebody left and never paid their personal expenses. And is it worth the time for legal to go after that? Not always. So I turned this one on so I could just see, who the people are that regularly do this and keep track of them. And then, we can spot check and make sure that those are getting paid.
Right. So it's especially good for things like corporate cards, because with corporate cards, if they're using their corporate card and then they mark it as personal, that's a little weird. It's like, why didn't you just use your own credit card?
Mm-hmm.
This day and age, you could just, you probably have a credit card. So yeah, this just gives you eyes onto things that have been marked as personal, and you can have it flag as corporate card or for out-of-pocket as well, if you wanted to monitor their out-of-pocket spend and just get some eyes on it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so those are 4 of the big models that Spectrum Brands really likes overall. So from here, we'd really just wanted to answer any questions that you guys may have. Did I do it right? There we go. Okay. Yeah, so does anyone have any questions over anything we went over? Yeah.
For the cash line validation model,
Yeah.
I recently noticed that there's been a lot of false positives.
Okay.
So is this something that we need to consistently update with credit card reports?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. If you have seen a lot of false positives, I encourage you to work with your CSM to uncover why that is. But yes, to your point, when you do activate this model, you submit a Excel sheet to our support team, who uploads all those credit card numbers into it. And yeah, it does need to be continuously updated in order to ensure that you're not flagging corporate cards that are not being used, for instance. So yeah.
That's really easy to update too, where we just do it, internally, it's because it's just the name of the employee and the last 4, and just
Right.
so easy to update.
Yeah.
Can you just elaborate a little bit more on that cash validation?
Yeah. I mean, the reason that people like cash line validation especially is because it is technically like a double dip model. It's essentially where a person will use their corporate card and then swipe the corporate card, and then ultimately they end up submitting it as a out-of-pocket expense. So it's like they're seeking reimbursement for out-of-pocket when they use a corporate card. Which, why would they do that? They should be saying it's a corporate card spend, when using a corporate card.
Yeah, so it'll
Makes
look
sense.
over that receipt, and if it sees those last 4 digits, it flags that and sends it to us to review. And this has the person's corporate card on it. Why are they submitting it as cash?
Yeah, so like in the risk message within the tool itself, it'll show you the last 4 digits that it identified on the receipt, if that makes sense. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Of
No,
course.
I'm just trying to associate if that's something that would help my company.
Yeah.
Or not, because we kind of use Concur as the first line of defense, where
Yeah.
I have something built into Concur saying that if this, they would have, where I use Concur, where it says something like, in the policy, that if you have a credit card transaction and in Concur now you either say create a new expense type or bring one in.
Right.
So what you were talking about is that they could bring in the cash transaction,
Yeah.
right? Like the pending
Yep.
transaction. And then we say, well, you have to have a credit card feed to go with this or you can't submit it. It's like a hard stop. So I feel almost confident that I might not be able to use that. But then
Yeah.
again, what if they manually put it in, right? Then
Right.
that might be a good idea, but then would it catch it?
Yeah.
Well, and
last
this is
4
what we
digits.
found is people will take pictures, and turn them in on expense it. Those don't come through usually as pending card transactions. They come through as cash. So then, as the tool catches it, it'll say, this wasn't cash, this was your company credit card, that number that we put in the tool.
By looking at the receipt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
transactions out of pocket and credit cards? What do you use?
So we use the duplicate expenses that catches a lot of the stuff. And then also this cash line validation where it looks for the credit card number on the receipt. And Concur doesn't have a lot of tools for that, and that's.
We put in justification why you could use the company credit card for that out-of-pocket expenses in Force account.
Oh.
But we still have to offer this to major.
Yeah, we found when we force a comment or a business purpose like that, they still, like you said, won't even type in. It's like cash expense or out for dinner. It's like, well, that's not answering my question. And they don't mean to submit cash and credit card separately. They just see it out there, and a lot of times they'll just beat the credit card transaction out there and submit it. So this helps catch it on the back end before payment. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's called cash line validation. And then your CSM should be able to help you to implement that or just walk through it. Yeah.
We have a few questions, actually.
For sure.
Cash line validation, does that just look at the last 4 digits?
Yeah.
Or does it look at last 4 and employee name?
Yeah, it depends on how what you submit to support. If you submit the Excel file with all the last 4 digits and the last name, that will utilize the user field that has the last name in it, as well as the last 4 digits on the receipt.
Would that catch if, say, John Smith used Bob Terry's card? So
Yeah, that's a good question. With that, you probably wouldn't want. You don't need to use the last name.
okay,
So yeah, you don't need to use it. So that would resolve that.
okay.
Yeah.
Then my other question was with personal expenses on a corporate card. That flag, when it flags based on that app, what do you do with those? Because the money's already been spent on the corporate card. They've got to pay it back. Our process is after it's through Concur, we reach out to them.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It is against policy for them to use their card for personal expenses. So this also we can keep track of who's doing it on a regular basis, so we can go back and talk to them. But right, they've already used the money, so then it's just us monitoring to make sure they pay it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah. Worst case scenario, you could claw back. You know.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions from you guys? Yes. Oh, Gordon.
For your report for the March employee audit report.
Yeah.
Sorry, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You guys say that I think you add an employee's name on there. Is that correct? It's like if there's like someone on like the marketing team. I'm like, oh, I want to watch their spend.
Yep.
Is there another report you use to kind of identify which ones you want to put on that report, or can you talk a little bit more about that, because that's definitely of interest for
how we find our problem people?
Yes, I mean she keeps a list right now. Of
I mean, we
everything
usually use the
problematic,
credit
but-
revoked report that we get from the bank, and we say like, oh, okay, this person has been submitting their expenses for a while. So that's when the flags we'll use to put them on the list.
Yeah, or if we catch somebody that just kind of walks that line of what they should and shouldn't be doing, we'll watch those people too.
So more just like through your audit, this is how you keep the radar of the ones that you want to put on this report to get the more data.
Exactly.
Gotcha. And then the second question I have is, we're fairly new. We launched our Canadian entity last November. We just went live May 1st with our US entity, which is a lot larger scale. Anything you would recommend as we're like navigating this? I mean, employees are loving the fact they get reimbursed timely, but our auditor, Lonnie right here, we're spending a lot of time with like audit rules. We have a lot of high risk. So just things that you would recommend that for new people on here to make it better and efficient.
I mean, our best success is just fine tuning as we go along, working with our CSM. I mean, we gradually went from weekly to biweekly to monthly meetings now as we fine tune the process and our policy.
And to follow up on that, AppZen is also like fully customizable. So if there's models that you find that you're either approving or just using for like reporting purposes, you could always deactivate those if the volume is too high on that. So yeah, you can turn off and on anything whenever you want. So,
Yeah. One example is for just people submitting for cash, not using their company card. At first, we started looking, I wanted to see anything over $50 because anything under, is different policy. And I found as we're doing that, for one, our dollar limit was set way too low. I had to raise that up because I was approving everything that was going through. So just making the tweaks as you go, and that's something our CSM would show us on those graphs.
Yeah, big one was allowance for tips. Because we just had that really raised our automation.
Yeah, because what you can do is it reads a lot of the data that's typed on, but sometimes it was missing the total on a restaurant receipt. So we could put in there, it's, if on the meals if it was 20% over, to still let it go through. And if it was over that, then we'd get to see it.
Yeah, and you can really choose whatever you want with that sort of setting. You could do 30, you can do 25, you could do 0, whatever you want. Yeah, yeah.
For those cash for expenses, were you requiring any proof of purchase to validate that sort of expense that usually prove that they show that they incurred that expense?
Just the receipt.
Just the receipt itself?
Yeah, and one of the bigger problems too is people didn't know what constituted a receipt. So we had to do a lot of training. It's got to have the date. It's got to have the actual amount that was spent and the detail of what you purchased. So not just, when you're checking out of a hotel, you can't just get the little receipt. You got to put the whole thing in there.
Yes.
Can you set up the cash line validation to look at just the individual, that person, or your whole population, all of your data, to see if it...
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, maybe you wouldn't want to include all of your corporate cards. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can limit the amount that you provide to support, and then it'll only flag the ones that are on that list.
Okay.
That's found on the receipt as well.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Yeah.
Hi, I have a question for corporate card expenses and that automation.
Yeah.
Can you just add our problem children, not the ones that's doing the right thing, the problem children? And as far as the pending cash validation, you can have your audit set up as a hard stop and will not let them submit that expense report.
Oh,
yeah.
Good idea.
Concur will do the, you can actually set it up, because I get a lot of questions, why can't I submit this? The expense hasn't imported into Concur yet. And that eliminates the cash because it has to wait 36 to 72 hours for the charge to import, and then they will. Gotcha. And that, again, that avoids the cash headaches.
Okay.
Right.
And them going after them to pay Amex back.
Gotcha.
So you can look into that.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Cool. Yes.
Do you use, and I may have the name of this wrong, but do you use the manager insight tool? And if so,
What was the feedback from the managers that are getting those emails and graphs from about their expense report behaviors?
Yeah, so that's something we don't use yet that I actually just saw on some of these slides, and it looks like it's going to be something I definitely want.
Yeah. We can always set you up with somebody that does use that tool as well, and then get feedback from them. Yeah.
Just to clarify from the question in the back, so in the analytics and reporting, there isn't a report or tool that identifies the cowboys, or there is?
That's a good question. There's a dashboard within analytics currently. It's called Employee Compliance Dashboard. And on there, it'll have all of your high-risk employees, top 10 high-risk employees, as well as like what unauthorized they've spent, what flagged for them, even the total amount of spend itself. So it has a lot of information related to that. It has missing receipt affidavits as well, which can be a good thing to track. So yeah, for sure.
One final question for all the Swifties out there. David, Nicole, your favorite Taylor Swift album. Go ahead, David.
Whatever the first
Nicole.
one was.
All right, very good. Well, you guys can think it over. We can report back later this afternoon. But I want to say thank you so much, David, Nicole, Dan, from Auditing. Fantastic job. How about a big round of applause for our folks up here?